Hello, can I ask everybody to sit down or stand? We're ready for our next speech. So this is one I'm sure everybody's really looking forward to. It's creating the epic sound of God of War Ragnarök with Michael Kent from PlayStation Studios.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to creating the epic sound of God of War Ragnarök. Just want to thank Develop and all the partners for putting on this amazing conference. And I hope everybody's enjoying the talks today. They're pretty awesome. Can everybody please turn off their mobiles? We don't want ringing and stuff going on while this is going on. And please, it'll be greatly appreciated if you give feedback on this talk at the end, not only for Develop, but also for me to help me get better at public speaking. Who am I? My name is Michael Kent. I am a senior supervising sound designer at PlayStation. I have 20 years of experience making games. Started at BioWare 2003. Then I worked with, in 2019, I went to PlayStation and worked with Jeremy Rogers on God of War. That's primarily what I've been doing there, but I also worked on a game called Demon's Souls. I was a creature lead. And I also did a little bit of work on Horizon Forbidden West. Not much, but a little. And yeah, about a year and a half before we shipped this game, I actually took over the project as the supervising sound designer. Jeremy decided to leave. He did an amazing job of setting up this project. He, did a lot of the beginning work and also a lot of the concepting. My job is to pretty much take this over the finish line and deliver one of the best sounding God of War games to date. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the audio vision for the game, sound effects mostly. And then we're going to talk about team structure, how we structured this massive team to get this game finished. And then we're going to break down pillar breakdown. So when I talk about pillars, that's directly relating to team structure. It's how we structured the team on these big projects. And then I'm going to show you awesome examples of the work from each pillar in video form. So first off, audio vision. So basically, we had to honor 2018. It was epic, amazing sounding game. So our job was to make sure that we, harness the sound of that game and just make it as good as possible for the sequel. We reused and remastered effectively. We used everything we could from the first game, remastered what we could to give it a new presentation for the new game, and then also made new memorable stuff added on top of that. Also, big thing for us, one of the things the studio, Sony Santa Monica, wanted us to do is prioritize combat clarity. The last game, it was okay. There was moments where you just didn't know what was going on. There was a lot of sound going on. So our job was to figure out how to get that clarity in combat. And also, let's see here. Grounded and impactful. It's crazy because you're like playing as a god and you think it has to be huge, but it also has to be super grounded. The game, all the direction was always like, make it more grounded, but you also have to make it the biggest thing ever. So that was the challenge. So let's talk about audio pillars here. So we used a pillar system to basically distribute and enable leadership. So what we do is we take the audio food groups. You've got player, you've got ambience, you've got UX, you've got the different groups, and we assign a lead to each one. And then they have a small team underneath that. So each pillar is responsible for planning their own work and distributing that work. We did all our work in three-week sprints. So the producers would be planning those 3-week sprints all the way through and then getting all the information from all the other teams on the game. And then we would plan the workout for those 3-week sprints. And also, basically everything that fed into a mix schedule. If you were at the mix talk earlier today, yes, we talked a lot about scheduling a mix. So we had a mix schedule, pre-mix and mix, and all our stuff had to line up with that. And it was a stage-gated process, so each pillar had a specific time they'd be going into pre-mix. So some people had a little longer to go. Say the player had to be done first, Basically, they would come into the premix, and then they would go back and finish bugs while the creatures came in for the next week, kind of like that. And also, the mix schedule dictated pretty much completion dates, which I just said. But here is the team structure. So essentially, all the direction came from the audio director and Eric Williams. I was providing sound design direction. My job literally was to unblock the pillar leads, which you see in the top row there. So all those names at the top, below ours are the pillar leads. Jody was a dialogue supervisor, and Sonia was a music supervisor. So basically, we had 2 producers, 3 including Kate, and basically they kept us moving and kept everything scheduled. And underneath the pillar leads, we had team members. I didn't list them all because there's about 70 when we finished this game out, which is insane. But each person who was a pillar lead had a small team working with them. And again, we had a tech team, a full tech team as well. So what is a pillar lead? A pillar lead is someone who owns a large chunk of the game's audio, is an expert in that content, and is someone a supervisor, myself, could go to if there's any issues or ideas that we needed to get out. So I was dealing directly with the pillar leads. Pillar leads responsibility, yeah, pretty much responsible for the work in that area. So they're responsible for finding what needed to be done. They're also responsible for planning that work and also executing on that work. And they were the quality gatekeepers. Basically, the way a pillar system works is not everything comes to me. Everything goes through the pillar. So they were the quality gatekeepers. They made sure everything was hitting a specific quality bar that we're trying to hit. And they're responsible for pre-mixing their own content. This was super important to make sure that our mix was smooth. We had guidelines set up. We needed specific things set, like attenuations, busing, and HDR settings, just to name a few. All that stuff had to be pretty much set up before they walked in the room, just to ensure our mix was as smooth as possible. And this is, I want to make this clear, this is a content leadership role. I was still managing people day-to-day, one-on-ones, career path. If any problems arose on that team, I dealt with the personal stuff on that, but they were just worried about content. So production's role, they kept the 3-week sprints moving. They gathered all the information from the upstream dependencies and pretty much aligned it with our plan. They were our positive force of light. They kept us, in a good headspace, and also at the end of the project, they basically kept us fed because we probably weren't feeding ourselves. And also the information gatherers. So like if a pillar needed a bunch of information, if they needed information on like creatures, how many, say how many creatures were in a specific level or anything, they'd be the ones to go gather the information for us and then give it to us. And basically risk management. So this was included the supervisors, but if there was anything slipping from the upstream dependencies, we would get together as a group, gather all the information about it, and then we would present that to senior leadership, and then senior leadership would decide what to do with that information. So let's talk about the technical sound design. We had a whole technical sound design on this project. It was led by Sean Laval at SMS, or Sony Santa Monica. They were pretty much in charge of like implementing and scripting stuff, complex bug fixing, performance. So at the end of the project, they're making sure the game's running. More complex workflow, like audio integration. Propagation system markup. So reverb propagation systems, marking up the levels, making sure it's all working. And also like animation tagging, basically helping out with all that stuff. So it was almost like a buddy system. Like most sound designers would work with these people and they would work together on, say, a creature. A lot of the technical stuff would be done by the technical team and all the creative stuff would be done by the sound designer, which is very interesting. Benefits of a pillar system, more ownership and coverage. So this allowed people who want to become leaders, get a chance to lead early and own something bigger. Again, yeah. gave folks a chance to lead. This is a great opportunity for people who really want to try leading and starting in a small subset to do it. It also helped me out immensely. It would be so hard to be able to manage and review everything in this game. So it allowed me to empower people to basically, help me out with a small bit of supervision for each area. And also easier to direct. Yeah, I would go directly to the supervisors if there was an issue with sound or ideas. I would just deal with them, and then they would disseminate that, or they would pass that information down to their team. And yeah, it gives you a better chance to hit higher quality. Eric Williams, the game director, has a saying, all 8s make a 10. So we kind of use that as like a mantra. And so if you think about the pillar system and the different food groups, it allows each food group to get to a consistent quality bar. So, and when you do that, the perceived quality is actually higher than it is. And then you get a consistent sounding game. So things we learned. Nothing's perfect. This system works, but you need to really kind of there's gray area, right? Not everything falls in a pillar, not everything falls in a creature pillar. There's stuff that falls in between. So you just have to make sure the teams are communicating and deciding where that content is, living, who's doing what, basically. So clear expectations. And again, so out of all this, because there were some times where people weren't communicating enough, we basically created a job description. So now we have a job description for a pillar lead that lays out exactly what they're responsible for and what they're not responsible for, which is going to help on the future titles if we use this system, or when we use the system. Encourage collaboration across pillars. That's another thing too, is sometimes it's pillars, it's not silos. And that was a big thing. A lot of times when people get busy, they just kind of fall into a silo. They work on their pillar. So we just have to make sure everybody's still communicating and working together. All right, so now let's jump into each pillar. We're gonna break down kind of each pillar and discuss like numbers and how we did things. So for cinematics, there was no real pillar lead for this. It was kind of the supervisors looking after this one. So 5 hours of cinematics, which was 109 cinematics in total. Formosa, we worked with Formosa. So they worked in the first game, 2018. So we worked with them again. We wanted to bring that same weight and heaviness to all the Foley that they brought from the first game. So we kept that continuity. And then it was interesting because we would take the Formosa Foley, and then Sweet Justice was our main editors for this, and sound effects and mix. So the Foley and music would go to Sweet Justice. They would put everything together and then send that back to us. Then we had a very efficient review process to speed things up. We used an ABC weighting system. So A content, or the best content, would go to the game director. B content would go to audio director and supervisors, and C content would just go to us. Basically, this system was really good at like just speeding things up and making things more efficient. We'd also have, before it even hit these guys, like the supervisors would actually do 2 rounds of feedback with Sweet Justice, and then we would send it to the appropriate people. And then eventually there was a final playthrough with all the directors. They would give final feedback on everything, either yes or no. And this is our spec. So we mixed everything at 79 dB SPL reference. We hit our -2 LKFS integrated, and basically we set momentary max peaks for our cinematics. This is super important. So in the game itself, there is no sound louder than -8 or -10 momentary max. This is what got us seamless transitions. So having the dynamic range of the cinematic and the game be the same allowed for smoothest transition. Not everything was perfect. Whoa, there we go. That happened. Oh. All right, so not everything was consistent though. So we did a lot of things, like sometimes we would fade the game Foley into the cinematic, and basically that would create a smoother transition. But we really wanted to get the transitions as smooth as possible. All right, so that was cinematics. Let's talk about player. This was led by Brian Higa. So we had to build on 2018 and push each weapon's identity. So there's a new weapon, new shields. We wanted to make sure that each weapon had a lane. So for each weapon, there was 10 runics. The new spear had 8 runics, R1, R2 combos, and a whole momentum system that we tied sound into. So as you progress through the combos, the sound would, build. Rage modes. We had 2 new rage modes, 3 in total. And we had to completely overhaul the Foley and traversal system. So this was important. We ended up recording all the Foley with Formosa. We wanted to match the cinematics. The last game, they didn't do it. They had 2 separate Foley. They had different Foley for the cinematics and the in-game. We ended up matching it as close as we could. And again, this helped with the seamless transitions. And 4 new shields, bringing the total to 5. And a new weapon, drop near spear. So let's talk about the spear. So the new weapon sonically had to sound different than Blade of Chaos and the Leviathan Axe. So we had to make it sound as different as possible. And wind. So we tied into the wind element of it. New recording sessions for this. This was very interesting because we had to record everything during COVID. So we ended up driving out into the middle of the desert in Bakersfield with everything. And we brought a bunch of metal and cloth and bottle rockets and just recorded everything out in the open. And then we got that back into the studio, extracted everything, started piecing it all together. And then basically the whole thing with the spear is I wanted to make sure that it told a story as you move through the combos. So it basically, I wanted it to kind of talk to you as you move through the combos, which is kind of interesting. And also, we also had an innovative explosion system for this built. So you can throw spears out into the world, you can detonate them. So the whole system is based off of, if you throw 1 spear out, it'll play the last explosion. If you throw 2 spears out, detonate them, it'll play the first and last. If you throw 3 spears out, detonate them, it'll play first, middle, last. And if you throw out more, it'll keep that pattern. And for the bigger moments, we had 5.1 content for the big relics. Brought in Lewis Everest from the UK team, and Brian Higa filled this out. So now I'm going to show you guys a video. We're going to show you guys some of the recording we did going into the DAW, and then we're going to show it in-game, the spear combos, and then a little bit of the detonation tech. So the idea of that was we wanted to create almost like a slot machine effect. So when the player was throwing it out, they would get that instant feedback, and they wanted to keep throwing spears into the world. Let's talk more about shields. So shields are very interesting, and we got tons of guidance in this from the combat team. But basically, oh my God, this is driving me crazy. Okay. Maybe I should stop using this clicker. Nice. Okay. My apologies. Okay, there we go. All right. Sorry, I'm struggling right here. There we go. Oh, geez. All right, we're back. Okay, no clicker. So yeah, combat team provided excellent guidance and inspiration for this. 4 different shields had to feel unique, so each shield changed the way the game played. Eric Williams provided awesome direction for this. He basically wanted each shield. Like, so if you're reading a comic and the comic was God of War, and he wanted the automatopoeia of using a shield to pop out, so that was basically his direction. We basically came up with, from that direction, we came up with buzzwords for each shield. So for Dauntless Shield, it was a Switchblade. For Stonewall Shield, it was Thick Door. For Onslaught Shield, it was Solid Hammer. For Shatter Star Shield, it was a Rustic Cannon. We worked with, again, Formosa to get all the content for this. We brought it back to the studio and then just made it as good as possible. So we're going to treat each shield. So I have each shield on its own and then in combat, so you guys get the context of how each shield feels and sounds. And of course, you can play as Atreus this game. So we did have a playable Atreus. The biggest thing for this was to basically lean into his childlike wonder and kind of build him more nimble and acrobatic, juxtaposing Kratos' brutish strength. He did have the same movesets as Kratos. He had a R1, R2 combos, and then he also had a bunch of relics that he could use, and also a bunch of cool stuff like the Sonic arrows. So this was very fun to do. Brian did an amazing job on this, and we made the Sonic arrows out of a bunch of different recording sessions over the span of the project. One of the main elements of this was a whip crack that we recorded in Painted Canyon in California. The whip crack essentially was made for impulse responses, but we ended up using it for the spear. And also we used a lot of bullet casings and other kind of cool elements to create this aesthetic. And yeah, it was a great source of inspiration. And for this video, Brian made this video just to show how the Sonic arrows were made. So it brings us to AI cast. This was led by Bo Jimenez. So there was a lot of creatures in this game. There was 113 variants of creatures, 9 bosses, 22 bosses, 9 companions, and 47 NPCs. The most important thing from the gameplay team was for us to make sure that every creature had a unique tell. So this is very challenging because there's a lot of creatures. So having a unique tell for each one was, yeah, very challenging. Again, we had to basically, another directive was to make sure that each creature family sounded unique from any other family. So basically everything had to have its own lane, and then in that creature family, each creature had to be recognizable. So we did a ton of previs early on with Sweet Justice. Basically, they helped us get everything stood up. And the cool thing about this is a lot of this work was amazing high quality. So this was like our first iteration of this. So we were starting from an amazing point with having Sweet Justice come on earlier and figure this out, help us figure this out. What that allowed us to do is take that content and expand on it and do multiple more iterations. It really did speed up our process. This included, again, R3 transitions and kills. This is like the big moves when Kratos kills a creature. This team looked after all of that. That was done, it was a lot of 5.1 content for that as well. Sweet Justice did help out with that as well. And every character from 2018 returned. We didn't really touch much of the content. The only thing we did is remaster the Draugr. We wanted it to give it the cinematic presentation that the new creatures had. The only thing we had to do with this, is kind of, we re-implemented all the old characters to match the kind of implementation that we're going for the new game. So what I'm going to show you guys now is a video. It's basically two families. You've got the cave dwellers and the light ones, so you guys can hear the stark difference. And then also each character in that family, so you can hear, just listen for it, and you hear the little subtle differences in each character. So. So Ambience Pillar, this was led by Alex Previty, who you met earlier today, if you went to the mixed talk. Basically, previous game, well, this game, we could go to all 9 realms and a realm in between realms. The important thing for this pillar was to make each realm feel truly unique. Yeah, everything was unique and vibrant in this game. The biggest thing for this, though, is we added like 3 times the emitters. So as you're walking through the world, there's a lot more critters and like tree movement and stuff moving through the world. This was to highlight 3D audio and us actually add a lot of depth as you're walking through these amazing realms. And we created this was crazy. There's a lot of emitters, so we had to create a loading system for this and basically load things in granularly as a player moved through the world. And a propagation system. was built from the ground up by Stepan Boyev. And yeah, this was kind of incredible system. It involved hand placing all the volumes and portals. This is great because we had a lot of control over it. So we could basically, if anything wasn't working, we could fix it as we went through the level. It was really nice. And we had one set of tuned reverbs. Instead of having bespoke reverbs for everything, we actually made a big set of really polished reverbs that we used throughout the game. This also saved us time in the mix because everything was already tuned really well. So this video we're going to show you now is the propagation system. There's bubbles that are going to pop up and kind of talk you through what you're hearing. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I think that's him.
Guilty, kind of messed up logic.
I know that. Suddenly it's cool. He won't talk anyone else. Never should see him.
He's literally working with grandmother.
So
What I'm saying is that maybe you wouldn't feel so weird about it if you said more than a cold hello to him.
Hey, sorry for interrupting.
You're not interrupting anything.
So that brings us to the gameplay moments pillar that was led by Justin Bell. So gameplay moments are cinematic moments you can walk up to in the world and they're placed in the world. You can either interact with them or they're just happening in the world. We had 300 of these, a lot. And we had 20 set pieces. These are big Hollywood moments that you can interact with. Kratos usually played through these moments. We had custom Foley for most of this stuff. We wanted to feel through 239 we had custom Foley for. We wanted to feel these to feel very special. We reused what we could, but for the most part, they were pretty special in their own right, so we wanted to treat them that way. At one point, we had 18 people on this pillar at its peak, getting content through. We ended up doing I think it was like a month of Foley recording for this to get everything recorded. And basically, the thing that sped this all up is Justin created an amazing tool called Pathmaker, which is basically an Excel sheet that basically can link. What it could do is it would give you links to videos. It would also give you links to Jira. So designers could open up, they could find what they were working on right away, find the Jira, but it also made Reaper sessions for you. So they could go in, make a Reaper session with the video in it, work on the scene, export it out right into Wise, and then start implementing it into the game. This is integral to get all this stuff in and to the quality that we did. So I'm going to show you guys a gameplay moment. It's called Ambience Run. It's basically a big set piece. Kratos is running through the forest, and it's a lot of 5.1 content cut into pieces. And there's a lot of point source emitters for Kratos swinging his axe and other things happening in the world. So I'm just going to play it for you so you guys can hear everything working. Oh, and also, yes, sorry. Global effort. We had UK, USA, and Japan working on all this.
You cannot. Ow! Easy. To me. Follow. We got company back here.
Oh, no.
Okay. We're all set, right? Get on, seriously?
UX and haptics was led by Nick Tomasetti. So we had 3 systems for haptics. We had game-driven haptics, which was triggered by designers. They wanted really tight control over this. So when you're fighting, they wanted precise like haptics on it. Audio-driven haptics aren't going to get you that. There's always going to be some delay with that. So they went with a designer-driven haptic system. We also had PS4 Rumble because this was cross-gen, and also audio-driven haptics, which basically what we did is we handled all the cinematic haptics. So the rule for this was Kratos and you had to feel what Kratos and Atreus felt. So anything that Kratos and Atreus felt in these scenes, the player would feel. There were some caveats. Sindri, there was a couple scenes with Sindri and Freya that we decided to put haptics on so the player could feel those scenes. And we kept iconic sounds. So yeah, we kept most of the UI sounds that we could. Remastered some of them, but again, added some unique stuff for the new game. One of the cool things we added was realm-based ambience. So if you go into the map into the UI, you're always going to hear like the ambience of the realm that you're in. New gameplay cues for stun and kill. So we added some cool. So when you enter a stun kill, there's going to be always like a nice big hit and a whoosh into that kill. So we added this to just add some continuity and more cinematic presentation. And also there's more things like you have the parry from the last game. So when you parry something with your shield, it's a very distinctive gong. We wanted a shield break. So if something was unblockable, we wanted a sound for that. So in this video, we're going to show you some leveling up of weapons. What's cool about this is we decided to make different sounds depending on the weapon you're upgrading. And we're going to show you the R3 kill and stun, and also the shield parry and shield break. And this brings us to puzzles and interacts. This is led by Stephen Chapler. So again, this is similar to the ambience. Each puzzle had to feel very specific to the realm. There were global modules that we used in all realms, like basically wheel cranks, chess brambles, like burnable brambles. Those were used across the realms. So there's pieces that tied these puzzles together. And then realm-specific stuff, in Svartalheim, you have water sluices, and you have hive tendrils in Elfheim, very specific. And again, we had a new visual script system in the game, and they were triggering all the puzzles through the system. So we needed to port all of the sound for the last game into the system for puzzles. Basically, and again, while we were doing this, we decided to update and remaster a lot of the content. The biggest things we did keep, though, is the chest and health, because they're very iconic. And in the end, there was about 130 modules, 171 puzzles. Yeah, and basically the coolest thing we did for this puzzle stuff was created dynamic spline emitter tech. This is very interesting. So if you're ever in Svartalheim and doing a sluice puzzle, you can freeze. So essentially you have these like sluices that are carrying water. You can freeze it at any point. It literally takes the spline and will cut it in half and stop the sound on the side that there's no water. If you unfreeze it, it'll redraw the spline and the water will follow. And we leverage the HDR system for a lot of the bigger puzzles, just to give the puzzles more impact. So this video you guys will see is more of like just like a montage of cool puzzle sounds. There's a cool bit at the end, as we were talking about earlier, about Atreus, juxtaposing Atreus, of him trying to open a chest, which I think is pretty funny. So.
Oh, I think I get it. If you freeze the geyser, the pressure will turn the wheel. Nice one. Yeah. If you could. It's facing the wrong way. The angle should work, Kratos.
Well done.
At your service. Chest. Not so easy, huh? Shut up!
So, some key takeaways from this presentation. Pillar leads empower team members to be leaders. This is super important, I think, for games this size, and you can scale this too from a smaller game to larger games. This really helps empower your team. You have to really trust the pillar leads as well. So it's just it's a really good system to bring the team together. Collaboration is key again. None of this is possible without collaboration within the team. So with dialogue, music, and sound effects, but also with our partners. We integrated Sweet Justice and Formosa as much as possible into our process. And also, honor the past and improve the present. Again, this is, 2018 was beloved for a reason, and we respect that, and we had to continue that legacy. And then I was going to talk more about HDR in this presentation, but unfortunately it was way too long. We're going to do probably either a PlayStation blog about HDR in general, or we're probably doing another talk potentially on HDR and how we use it in this game. So yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Michael. Really appreciate that. So that brings us to the end of Develop Today.